The following program contains mature subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Taking a relationship to the next level. This is Passion with Dr. Laurie.
Welcome to Passion, a show about love, sex, and relationships. Tonight on the program, we bring you Dating Dilemmas, brought to you by EliteSpeedDating.com. Every month, we just focus on dating issues, and we find out what our listeners, some of their issues that they want to discuss about that. We answer questions, we pick specific topics about this, and we do that with Frank Kermit. He is here. He joins us every month. He is a dating coach. He has published over 20 books, close to 25 now, actually, and has all kinds of degrees and experiences over time. So he's the right guy to check in with when it comes to dating. At least he's been our right guy, that's for sure. So Frank, let's talk about something, because I've noticed on your posts recently, you've been posting a series of articles that you've written on dating and aging, or dating as you get older. And on this show, we get those questions a lot from older people, right? Who say they don't know where to start and what do we do? And there are no good men out there and like blah, blah. So we have a lot of material to pick from.
The article is about the reasons why dating is harder for older women. And the way this came about is I was at an event that you know well, and a couple of fans started a conversation with me, and they really wanted to engage on the topic of why was dating harder for older women.
Right.
So I promised them I would write an article, and I moved it to the top of my list. I was anticipating writing about maybe 500 words, just making it a short article.
Right, like a blog post.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, the more I wrote, the more I researched, it turned out to be a 50-page
that's
article.
A book, right? That's just another book for you right there.
For me,
it'll be a perfect book to go next to the sex Bible for people over 50. First, you read yours, they date, then they have good sex with my book. No?
Well, we can make it a booklet.
It's a marriage.
We can make it a booklet. My books tend to be at least 200 pages each, so
okay.
50 pages is a little small for me. But yeah, it's a good booklet.
You think big. Okay, I see what you
mean. So 25,000 words later, and I've been publishing it on my blog in parts. And there's a lot going on. It's not just a simple matter. There's a lot of different factors at work that offer challenges, and I don't think enough attention is given to the plight of older women who are back on the dating scene.
So how come you chose older women and not men?
Well, it started off with the fans who had approached me. They wanted specifically, they were a couple of older ladies, and they wanted something specific for them. So it really just started off as, okay, well, I'm happy to write an article on that topic. And just what I discovered is that older men tend not to deal with the same struggles as older women.
Okay.
Part of the reason is men tend to die sooner than women do. So for every generation that exists, the men will die sooner, so there'll be less men in ratio to the women available.
That seems to be the biggest problem.
In their own age group. One of the studies that I found quoted me some numbers. When I did the math, here's what I discovered. In senior homes, from the time a man turns 65, he has only a 50% chance of living until the age of 75.
Really?
Yeah.
So if you reach 65?
If you reach 65, but you have to live in a senior home, and that's what these numbers are based on.
On senior homes?
In senior homes.
Okay, but nobody goes into senior homes at 65 anymore. The average age, like I've been giving talks there, believe it or not, sex talks there, and the average age is like 83.
Well, for the material that I was studying in the textbooks I was looking at, they listed 65. So for, let's say, 65 years old, there's about 70 men for every 100 women.
Okay. That makes sense. Mm-hmm.
When we get to the age of 75, that number of 70 men goes down to about 40.
Okay. Wow.
So half the men are gone for every 100 women.
Right.
When we get to 85, the age of 85, there's about 20 men for every 100 women.
Yeah, it's like 1 to 5. I know that, having gone and actually did some of the math around me. It's 1 guy, 5 women. And this is why actually the spread of disease
is so rampant.
Is rampant even in seniors' homes. And people, when I say this, people freak out. They're like, "No, you're joking. It's not true."
No,
it's true. I've talked to nursing staff. I've looked at the studies, the research, the disease control stats.
There's no reason for anybody at that point to be monogamous, because you don't have to be monogamous in a monogamous committed relationship in order to have sex.
Right, but they also don't use condoms. That's part of the problem. The problem is that you have the one guy who has multiple partners. I'm not even sure they all know about each other. Like, I'm not even sure some of it is so open, or they go from partner to, they serial monogamy, but short-lived,
It's generally not serial monogamy, because if any person says, you know what, I'll only have sex with you if you give up all these other partners, well, it's easier to reject that and skip that person, because there's going to be enough people who say, I'm not going to push for monogamy, because if I push for monogamy, so will everybody else. And I might be one of the people who gets left out, because there's only 1 man for every 5 women.
And hotbed of activity, actually, in those in the seniors' homes. Absolutely. 514-800 if you have a question about dating and aging, or dating later in life. We'd love to hear from you. 514-800 to text in. You can call in as well at 514-790-0800. My guest is Frank Kermit, and we are the show is sponsored by EliteSpeedDating.com. Fritz-Gerald, who's usually joining us, is away, so we extend to him our hellos.
Anyway. Hi, Fritz.
So here we go. When you say older woman, what are you referring to? 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s? That's a very good point.
Very good point. Now, this is one of the challenges I had with this article, because I was looking at women who were over 65. That was my initial demographic, women who are over 65.
Okay.
Now, I coach a lot of people. I've coached a number of women, and I find that some of the challenges that women who are over 65 have in finding a serious commitment. I'm not talking about finding sex. I'm talking about finding a serious commitment.
Right.
I have coached women in their mid-30s and above who have those same challenges.
Right.
And this is why I said, okay, I'm just going to say older women. And if a woman identifies herself as an older woman and she is only 40, I'm not going to say, well, this article's not for you.
Right.
They're going to be able to pull something out of it.
Right. I like to look at it as, older, meaning just not younger. So for me, maybe my own age category would be women in my cohort in their 50s are older women, because we're not 20, we're not 30. We've gone through all of that, so we're older.
Well, one thing I've learned is that it's not my place to tell a woman if she's older
if she's
or younger,
older, right?
I don't
You better watch
trouble.
yourself. Exactly. So I like that approach. It's like, I'm not telling you what older is. Let's go to Mark on the line. Hi, Mark.
Hi there. How are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
I'm very well. I have a question for Frank.
Yeah.
I'm 61 years old, just returned to Montreal since the end of March.
Oh,
from
great.
Edmonton.
Welcome back.
And thank you. It's old home to me, and it's nice to be back.
Good.
But I'm involved with the blindness community here.
Okay.
And a lot of organizations and a lot of friends going back to the 60s at the MAB. But I'm interested in meeting sighted people. My ex-wife was sighted, and I sort of got used to that realm.
Okay.
So how do you get back into that realm? My concerns, I've read your books on the speed dating thing and the 200-page book. And like a lot of it has to do with body language. When you can't see, you have to go by voice and other cues. How would you be able to explain what would be maybe some good methods or a good way, and maybe get some assistance from you in meeting sighted people, because they don't always have an understanding of how blind people are, and
right.
It's uncomfortable for some of them too. But how do you work around that? And I know just be yourself, but
well, that's
when you've
easy
got
to
10
say,
minutes
right.
in the speed dating thing, I don't know how you'd be able to do that.
Right. Well, you know what? We'll talk about that coming up after we hear from our traffic center. But I want to address that. You're a blind person wanting to meet someone who is not blind, and how you can go about that. We'll put Frank on that case right away. That's coming up.
The latest trends and hottest topics, love and sex, handled honestly and with passion. Here's Dr. Laurie, CJAD 800.
Dating dilemmas tonight on the program, brought to you by EliteSpeedDating.com. Frank Kermit in studio. Frank is a dating coach. He's written he's on his 25th book anyway. So he, has studied human relations and human dating practices your whole life. First with yourself, and then going through it.
I didn't just start studying it. I made it a point to live it. Whatever it is that somebody said, well, this is what you should try. I went out and I tried it. So I know from experience what does, what doesn't work, and how to calibrate to things like a disability.
Right. So let's go to
Michael.
To Michael, who is that Mark? I think Mark. Anyway, he's talking about being a blind man. His wife was sighted, and he would like to get back into that kind of scene.
All right, Mark, first of all, thank you very much for calling. Whenever you're facing any sort of disability, whatever your disability is, whether it's blindness, whether it's weight, whether it's mobility, the one thing you got to remember is that you are the ambassador to every person you meet. So they may not, people that you're dating, the people you're meeting, they may not grasp what the culture is that you embody. It's your job to communicate that. If things like body language, where you're unable to read body language, or maybe you yourself don't give off the same type of body language to communicate, that's a great conversation topic. Mm-hmm. And you can start off by saying, one of the things about not being able to see is that I'm not able to read a person's body language. I really have to focus in on the quality of their tonality to gauge exactly what it is they're feeling. So you can start with those type of conversations, and it opens up a lot because people will ask you questions. And you're letting them know what they can and cannot do if they're trying to reach out to you. Further, okay, let's say that with any disability anyone is facing, that only 1 in 1,000 people would be willing to go out with them. And those are the odds you may be facing. I don't know you personally. I don't know your ability to connect. I don't know how charismatic you are. Right. But let's say those are the odds you're facing. Only 1 in 1,000.
As an example. Doesn't mean that's what it is. Right. Okay.
Your job is to be the best possible candidate you can be to attract that 1 in 1,000 that comes along. And that's basically it. But that's the formula of success in any area of life. If you're looking for a very particular type of job and, wow, only so many people get that job, well, there's always somebody available to take that job. Your job is to be one of the best people possible to get that job. Right. Every time someone says to me, it's too difficult to date because of my age, because of this, because of that, I have been fortunate in my life to have met exceptions to the rule. And the one thing they all have in common is that they truly focus on being able to offer something that is unique. And I'm not talking about just one thing, but a package of things. Mm-hmm. So let's say you can't offer a particular thing because of a disability, or because that thing that you could potentially offer, it just doesn't agree with you as a person. It's against your particular value system. Look at everything else you offer. I have to tell you, my heart breaks sometimes, because when I'm coaching somebody who doesn't feel that they're ever going to meet someone, mm-hmm. and I just talk to them a little bit and I find out what is important to them, what they have to offer as a human being, people underestimate what they have to offer.
Interesting. Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that. People underestimate their strengths. Mm-hmm. Often they focus on their perceived weaknesses without actually looking at all the strengths they have. And sometimes in therapy, my job is to point out somebody's strengths, right? To work with the strengths. And I've never met somebody who didn't have any. That's the thing. You just have to know where they are.
One of the strengths I like to point out to people is their level of compassion. Because when you have something working against you, one of two things is going to happen. You could either turn very bitter, very angry, and push people away, yeah. or you have a greater capacity for compassion. And if you can tap into your compassion, you're going to be able to connect with a lot of other people, because through that compassion, you're going to be able to give them a chance in letting them give you a chance.
Right. Well said, Frank. Well said. The texter writes, "Hi, Frank. My mom is 78 and she has 3 gentleman callers, and she is not a bowl of cherries." Would that be an exception? maybe she's not a bowl of cherries to you, but maybe, you're her kid, but maybe to gentlemen callers, she's a lovely bowl of cherries.
The fact that she has 3 gentlemen callers is a good sign. How she treats these men is going to be a very telling sign. And don't assume that just because your relationship with her, which is a very different dynamic.
Of course.
It's not her job to be your friend. It's her job to be your mother. And that may add an element of a dynamic that doesn't exist in her romantic relationships with others. Now, the fact that she's not a bowl of cherries and she has gentlemen callers, I'm hoping that gives people hope to say, look, no matter what it is you've got working against you, there's people out there that want to date you, but you have to put yourself out there and let them find you.
Yes, it is about putting themselves out there. And I think as we get older, it might get more difficult to put ourselves out there.
Very much
right?
so.
Because when you're younger, you're in the dating world, you're not dating, the workforce, you have a whole bunch of colleagues and you're out and about. You have more energy to volunteer and to do different things. So, and as we get older, at least the people I know tend to be a little bit more homebodied, a little bit, less, let's say, less out there, less active with a lot of people. So that poses its own challenge right there.
That is one of the biggest challenges for older women in the world of dating. When older women were younger, they were on the receiving end of sexual attention. They didn't really have to ask somebody out. Somebody would ask them out.
Right.
Now that they're older, there's less men available. And some of these men may not necessarily make the first move. So guess what? Somebody who's never had to make the first move now has to start making the first move. Now, if all of your life you have been on the receiving end of sexual attention, if all of your life it's always come to you in some form or another, and suddenly now you have to be on the projecting end of sexual attention in order to find any sort of romantic connection, it can be very scary. It can be incredibly isolating. Because the idea of having to put yourself out there and face rejection directly head on
Scary.
is terrifying. But that is the formula of success, being willing to face that fear and still make it happen.
Yeah. Here's a question, again, kind of a disability, at least perceived by the person as such. When do I tell my dates that I have horrible body acne on my backside and inner thighs? Do I wait until just before sex or mention it on a first date?
Okay, well, this is going to depend on one very key element, and the key element is this. Are you okay with this being public information?
I wouldn't think of, that's not something I would have thought of.
What do you mean?
That wouldn't be my first thought, if I tell this person, somehow it's going to get out.
Well, no. If you tell somebody on a first date about something, you have to know that if you have, let's say, 10 first dates in a span of 3 months, there's 10 more people now that know about this. Mm-hmm. And friends may speak with friends, and eventually you have to assume that more people are going to know about it that you don't even know will know.
Right.
So that's the first question.
Okay.
Is this something that you're comfortable about becoming public? Now, if you're very comfortable about it being public and you really don't care who knows, then yeah, you can mention it on a first date and say, look, there's something you do need to know about me. If you got a problem with it, let me know now, because I don't want to waste your time and I don't want to have my time wasted. I have body acne and it's not something that people feel comfortable with, but I'm okay with it if you're okay with it. Okay? Now, if you do not want this information going public, no, you don't bring it up on a first date. You test the person.
Okay.
Maybe you test them with, let's say, a discussion. Do you remember this scene in a movie where you talk about something similar and see how the person reacts? Mm-hmm. Maybe it's an old TV show that you used to watch. Remember that episode where they talked about this particular issue? I remember being a kid watching a show, The Facts of Life. Mm-hmm. There was an episode of Facts of Life, and there was actually a young teenager who was used to try to make somebody jealous, and he had lots of acne on his face. And I always remember that episode, and it stuck with me. I might engage in a conversation bringing that up, saying, oh, do you remember old TV shows? Do you remember this show? Do you remember Happy Days? Do you remember this? And get to the Facts of Life, talk about that episode, and now I'm going to watch for that person's reaction. If that person says something like, oh, yeah, I remember that episode. I really couldn't stand the look of the guy, and so on. Well, now you know that this is a person who can't handle what your situation is. If the person reacts and says, well, you know what, we all have something, and I have a cousin who has back acne, and I used to squeeze the pimples on my cousin's back acne, and I'm totally cool with that. Okay, now you know that the person is going to be open to this kind of conversation and possibly a romantic situation. That's how you test people without having to reveal your secrets.
Right. That's so funny. You know, it brings up memories. Funny. Sometimes things that people write to me trigger my own memories, you know, way, way back.
You used to squeeze pimples on your cousin's back?
But so many years ago when I lived in Los Angeles, there was I had a guy that I met, and that was his situation. He had like severe back acne that he was extremely self-conscious about, but he told me about it. So, and I was like, okay, big deal. It's only acne, you know? It was like, whatever. But I guess he felt, embarrassed or didn't know how I would react. So I guess he was testing also by sharing that information.
If you're okay with that information going public, you may as well bring it up on a first date. Don't make it the first thing you say, like, hi, how's it going?
Well, that would be weird. Yeah, that would be, I mean, the person you've often said, person has to earn some of this information. Like, see if it's going to go anywhere first. Why first date? There's a difference between a first date. If that first date is going to lead to sex, it's one thing. If that first date should lead to a second date, you can wait till the second date. It doesn't have to be on the first date.
Not necessarily, because sometimes you want to find out right away if they're in or they're out. Why bother with a second date?
Yeah, that's true. We will address more of these questions. By the way, we're talking about dating later in life, but I also have other questions. There's one about basically wanting to date someone who doesn't want to be their plan B. So we'll talk about what that's all about. So lots of, we got to pick more of Frank's brain on dating tonight.
The following program contains mature subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Your relationship's on the line. Connect with Dr. Laurie now. 514-790-0800. Passion. News Talk Radio. CJAD 800.
Dating dilemmas tonight on the program. The last Wednesday of every month, we focus just on dating. And tonight we've been looking at dating in our older years. Frank Kermit joins me in studio. He is a dating coach. He's the author of over 20 books on the subject of dating. So we've got a couple of questions and comments. I think matching body types is better than matching ages. Today, it is a better indicator of your lifestyle. A hot 50-year-old woman, it's nice that somebody calls, 50-year-old women hot.
And
I like
they
that.
Are.
A hot 50-year-old, you're just saying that.
No, listen, in my youth, I used to date women who were 30 years my senior.
Oh, my goodness.
So I like older women.
Let me continue. A hot 50-year-old woman does not want a dad bod guy. She wants a man in shape and usually younger to look good beside her. Same for the guy. A 50-year-old man in top shape does not want a woman his age with fat, flabby arms and legs. Just visit an Ironman event and you will notice the age gap between some fit couples. Clearly, they live the fit lifestyle and fit well together. So I don't know if that's something I think that just says something about values, huh?
If you have a certain type of value set, it always helps to find someone who is compatible with your value set. But let's remember that just because someone is in shape and very hot looking, we can't automatically assume that that person seeks the same. Each person has different emotional needs. And a person who is in great shape may be more worried about being abandoned than their partner being in the same shape as them.
Right.
So generally speaking, we can say that if fitness is very important to someone, then yeah, they're probably going to be a lot better off being compatible with someone who is exhibiting that same level
because
of
it might
health.
not matter for there are plenty of, how many times do you see couples around where you have one who looks in great shape and one who's very overweight? Like it may not matter to some people, and
For
that's
some
okay.
people it doesn't.
It's not what they value.
It depends what their emotional needs are.
Right. So that makes sense. So this from a woman. I just turned 62 and I've had real tough time dating. Actually, not dating. Most men I came in contact with wanted younger women. Well, recently I met a younger man, 6 years younger, and fell in love for the very first time. Long story short, best thing that ever happened to me. Met him on Facebook. We now share our lives. Never, ever give up. I almost did, and that would have been a shame. I most certainly would have lost the best guy that ever happened to me. So that's nice.
That's fantastic.
I like that.
And this is exactly the point. That, yeah, maybe the odds are against you. Maybe you're going through frog after frog after frog, but you can't give up because there's that prince out there for you.
Right. Another from a woman. This kind of talk gives me anxiety. Like I need to find the right man while young. Otherwise, I am doomed. Anxiety of making a mistake, even though I'm enjoying myself right now with my partner. So I guess thinking about the future, do you think it's one of the reasons why some people stay in really bad marriages or bad relationships because they're getting older and they feel they'll never find somebody else? It's better to be with the devil they know than the devil they don't, or lonely.
Very much so. And I want to point something out. This is something that keeps coming up, this word anxiety, with young people in the world of dating. When I say young, I mean people under 30. Mm-hmm. So between, let's say, 20 and 30, they have this anxiety about trying to plan the rest of their life and looking for something serious because it's like, well, I have all this pressure on me. I want to be very clear here because I don't want to sugarcoat anything. You need to hear the truth. The truth is that if you have certain things you want in your life, such as you want the white picket fence, you want the house, you want the 2.5 kids, mm-hmm. in that type of household, you need to start planning for that. Okay? But again, across the board, when you're looking to set goals, anything that you want to plan for your future, you want to be president of the company, you want to work for yourself, you want to go and live in a particular area, the sooner you start planning, the sooner you're going to achieve that goal. Mm-hmm. When it comes, however, to the idea of starting a family, now you have to start thinking in terms of a biological question.
Right.
We're dealing with a biological clock.
Right.
Both men and women have a biological clock. It affects each gender differently. And if there are certain goals you have that you have to factor your biological clock in, you may be feeling anxiety now, but that might be a sign that there's something you want and you're not worried you're worried that you won't be able to get it.
Right.
So it might be something that you want to sit down and think about, maybe see a professional about, just to work through your anxiety. Because if you do have specific goals that have to factor time or a time limit in, then yeah, you do need to start thinking about it.
It's nerve-wracking. I meet a lot of people who do have this biological clock going and who are looking and aren't finding, and then it just gets more and more. Yeah, the anxiety just gets worse and worse, and then they're like, well, what do I do? Like, this is what I want. I'm not getting it. Like, do I settle for anything? Like, what?
Look, the anxiety is just going to get worse the older you get, because the closer you are to whatever deadline you have in your head, the more you're going to feel pressure. Sometimes when I'm coaching adult male virgins, mm-hmm. one of the things that propels them to say, okay, I got to handle this. Some of them are about to turn 40. And they don't want to be a virgin at 40. For some reason, they can handle it at 30. They can handle it at 35. But there's something about they don't want to be that 40-year-old virgin.
Right.
So all of a sudden, it's like, look, my birthday is 6 months away. Can you help me? And it's like, let's do some intense work. And in 3 months, you're going to get that first girlfriend. Mm-hmm. And let's make that happen. But sometimes a little bit of anxiety could be a good thing to push you.
Well, a little anxiety is a good thing. It's part of life, actually, to have a little bit of anxiety. It's when it's debilitating that it becomes a problem.
Exactly.
But anxiety gets us moving. Like call it stress. A little bit of stress gets us doing things. You have a deadline, that's stress. That gets you going to produce faster. I mean, so a little bit is good. A lot is not. It could paralyze you. So here we go. I answered this question last night, and I said, I'm pretty sure I know what Frank would say, so I'm gonna answer it. So I did answer it. So I went on a date with a former employee of mine, and we hit it off great. However, that was 2 years ago. About a few days after we went on that date, her friend introduced her to a guy, and she's been with him ever since. Yet every day since, she's been complaining to me and tells me all the time that she wishes she had chosen me, etc., etc. Also, when we meet up for lunch, sometimes we both feel that sexual tension. I've been single since our date, 2 years. Some part of me says she will eventually turn towards me. However, the other part of me feels like I'd be plan B. I just don't know what I should do.
Wow, where do I start?
You know what I didn't realize when I read this yet last night is the person was an employee of his.
Well, former employee.
With
It's
a former.
employee.
Right.
So
okay.
there's no
That's
no
right. There's
issue
no
there.
issue there. Okay.
All right, first question I'm going to ask you, dude. Are you using her as an excuse to stay out of dating because you have your own fear of intimacy? 2 years is a long time to be single and not approaching anybody else and holding out for this girl that you went on one date with.
Right.
So is this just like a Band-Aid? Is this just an excuse because you really don't want to date for whatever reason? Point number 2. Do you really want this girl? Do you really want this girl? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, go for it. What are you waiting for? Get to the point where she rejects you flat out. And if she rejects you, you move on.
Right.
But you're sitting here saying you're waiting for her to make the first move. She's not your mother.
Well,
no.
What does that have to do with being her mother?
Because he's waiting for her to be the adult in the situation. He's waiting for her to take the responsibility.
To turn towards
He's
her.
waiting for her to say, I want you, I choose you. No, it doesn't work that way. You want something in life, you got to go for it. You're sitting there saying, golly, I hope she chooses me. Yeah, women really love men that are not assertive. Do you see what you're doing here, dude?
There's also that, but the idea, even if, let's say, she does go to him, he will be the plan B. Like, to me, she's keeping him on the bench. What I was saying was that he was on the bench. I want to continue this because I think there's the whole thing about unrequited love and pining over somebody and being benched by somebody keeping you on the back burner, waiting, hoping that they're going to somehow, choose you is an issue that a lot of people have. So I want to get to that.
Straight talk that's all-inclusive. Passion with Dr. Laurie. News Talk Radio. CJAD 800.
Dating Dilemmas on the program tonight with Frank Kermit, brought to you by EliteSpeedDating.com. Frank is a dating coach, the author of 24 books now, on his 25th, and many, many, many articles on the subject of dating. So he is definitely your go-to guy for dating. So we were talking about the guy who's been not dating for 2 years, waiting for this woman who he has sexual tension with, or who seems to flirt with him, or who seems to keep him on the back. Like, to me, it just sounded like this woman is keeping him on the back burner.
He's the backup.
Exactly.
Guy.
And I said, why do you want to be anybody's backup?
Well, let me point something out. The fact that he's still been hanging out with her for 2 years, meeting up with her, listening to her problems, that tells me that he really doesn't mind being the second choice. He's still holding out that he wants to be with her. Mm-hmm. And one of the problems is he has to address now if he's okay with being with her now, knowing that for 2 years she chose someone else.
Right.
Okay. Then again, did he give her a reason to choose him? When she met that other guy and started dating that other guy, did he fight for her? Not physically, but did he chase her? Right. Did he say, hey, we got something going on here.
Right. Try me. Right.
Dude, if you're listening, you accepted being in that role. And I'm going to give you a phrase to say, okay? I want you to listen to me and I want you to practice this in the mirror. When she starts telling you about her problems with her current boyfriend, this is what I want you to say. Stop. I'm not your therapist. Mm-hmm. When you're with me, we have fun. And get your hand up and make like a stop sign with it. Stop. I'm not your therapist. When you're with me, we have fun. And then go do something fun.
Right.
Because when she's telling you these problems, the emotions that she's going through at that moment are all negative, and she's linking those emotions to you. And that keeps her from seeing you as a potential partner.
That's a good point.
So my advice is walk away from this one. I think that you're a good-natured guy. I think you're a nice guy. I think you're good-natured and you genuinely want to be there for her. I think she's taken advantage of your affection.
Yeah. And this texter writes, go for it is right. Bravo. Because, you said either go for it or walk away.
Go for it or walk away.
It's one or the other.
No.
But staying in this limbo stage, I don't quite get it.
So, and dude, you have to acknowledge, do you really want to date other people? Do you really want to find a girlfriend for you? Then act like it.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of offending her. Be afraid of continuing this bad process, which is starting to affect you. Because if it wasn't affecting you, you wouldn't have
written in. Exactly. This texter wants to know, how do I find someone that just wants to date casually a couple of times a week, but is not interested in a commitment? I do not want a relationship. I just miss the companionship and sex.
Okay, well, first of all, you need to be very open and honest about what you're looking for.
That's true.
Next, you have to learn how to manage a casual relationship. Here's something that you're already making a mistake about. Casual relationships do not see each other twice a week. Maximum once a week. Here's what happens. You start seeing somebody twice a week, and you're enjoying their company. And you start seeing them 3 times a week once in a while. Well, once in a while becomes more often. Until you're seeing them 3 to 4 times a week, and now you're starting to have feelings about relationships, and then you have to have the talk, and what do you want to do, and why are you seeing somebody else? Well, I didn't say we were going to see somebody else, but are you seeing somebody else now? No, I'm not seeing somebody else now, so we're in a relationship, but I didn't want to be in a relationship, but I kind of fell into a relationship. Oh my goodness, please stop.
Right.
You want to have a casual relationship, you have to manage it. Once a week, no more. You do not act like a couple in public. No holding hands in public. No kissing each other in public, because you don't want to send the message to the public sphere that the two of you are a couple. If you don't want to be in a relationship, don't act as if you are in a relationship, because that's misleading somebody and you're going to break somebody's heart.
Unless you choose to be in an open relationship where you can have the companionship, the sex, and have other relationships on the side, but then you have to have an agreement with the person you're dating. So you have to find somebody else who also wants to have that kind of relationship.
And if you want to be in an open relationship, I got to tell you, 21% of the population practices consensual non-monogamy.
21%?
21%. There
Really?
were 2 studies, 2 separate studies done. Was it the Kinsey Institute? I don't remember the name. 2 separate studies done. One of them came out with 21 point something percent, and the second one came up with 21 point something else percent. But it's 21% of the population has practiced consensual non-monogamy. This does not include cheating.
No, this is consensual, right? For swinging, open, polyamory, all the different forms of non-monogamy that exist.
Or simply dating someone semi-seriously, but knowing that, we allow each other to date elsewhere.
Date others.
Or invite a third person to join us. It covers everything. 21% of the population's already open to it. If you're brutally honest, you will find someone who is looking for the same thing. Regular, casual encounters, because you don't want to be with a stranger each time. You'd like to develop a friendship with benefits. I actually have some material on my website. If you go to franktalks.com and you go to the blog and you type in Friends with Benefits, I've got plenty of material there for free that you can study, as well as a couple of books on the subject.
All right. Well, if you want to find out how to do it well, there you go. Now, Frank, just there's a couple of things. The speed dating, so Elite Speed Dating holds events regularly, right? So they just have people just sign up on their website.
If you go to elitespeeddating.com, you're going to see what events are coming up. The events are a wonderful variety of events, something for everybody, something for every age group. Have a look at that website. It's a phenomenal way to meet new people. Every time someone says, how do I meet new people? Speed dating is a great way to meet new people.
Yeah, don't be afraid of it.
I wrote a book, The Frank Guide to Speed Dating. Fritz wrote the introduction to that book. Why am I such a proponent? I met one of the best girlfriends of my life through speed dating.
Okay.
It really is an amazing way to meet a variety of people in a short amount of time.
It's great practice. It's great practice for conversation. It's great practice for dating. Even though there's short conversations, it's okay. It allows you to learn how to do sound bites better than.
Listen, in 10 minutes, you're going to get a chance to practice how to talk on a date, how to meet somebody, see if there's an initial spark.
Yeah.
It's a great way for people who, let's say, for whatever reason, they've been out of the dating world. Now it's time to get back in.
It's a good way to get back in. You're right.
And if you've been hanging out with somebody who rejected you and you're meeting them for lunches and dinner and you're struggling and trying to decide, should I go for it or not? Try speed dating and get back out there,
That's a good plan. And if people want to get in touch with you and they need coaching to get back into the dating scene?
franktalks.com. franktalks.com.
Frankie, thank you so much for being here. As usual, we will catch up with you next month, as we do every month. I want to thank all our texters and our listeners as well. Thank you to our technical producer, Dave Simon. If you want to connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, go to @Dr. Laurie Betito, last name spelled Betito, or you can just go to my website, drlaurie.com, drlaurie.com. Coming up next on CJAD is The Comedy Show with your host, Joey Elias. We'll talk to you again tomorrow night when we have Maître Linda Hammerschmidt, and we'll answer your divorce questions here for free on the program. In the meantime, have a great rest of the evening, and remember to live your life with passion.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by the Adult Male Virgin Seminars and Telephone Consultations. If you are an adult and want to get a handle on this once and for all, you need this seminar. Being an adult male virgin can be most stigmatizing in today's society. You feel like a failure in the eyes of the mass culture around you, alienated from your male friends who all talk about their sexual conquests, and you must hide this shameful secret lest they use it against you. And the very personal pain, anguish, and despair that cannot be described by words that haunts you every moment of your life. Enough is enough. It is time for male virgins to take charge of their sex lives. Frank gives you the rules of winning in this seminar, the Adult Male Virgin Seminars and Telephone Consultations. Make your first time the best time of her life. Only available at franktalks.com. Frank helps adult boys turn into men.
If you need help with your relationships, my buddy Frank, he's got some tips. Just go to franktalks.com. His advice is better than your mom's. He knows what you're going through, Frank has been there too. So log on to franktalks.com. franktalks.com.
Need help with love, sex, dating and relationships? Visit franktalks.com.
Need help with love, sex, dating, or relationship issues? Help from Frank Kermit, the best-selling author and Canada's most international relationship coach, is only a click away at franktalks.com.